Yeah, so we're going to speak at NECANN. I'm going to be speaking on a panel with, I think, 3 others about innovative product manufacturing, some disruption in the industry right now. I'll be speaking to it from a beverage perspective, obviously, because that's my focus. Hopefully throw in a couple plugs for Frosted Nug. But yeah, so it should be interesting. And yeah, it's an honor to speak here. So, let's get it going.
I am Jake Robbins, Manager of Client Services for Longview Strategic. We're a specialty management consulting firm. What we do is help people really get done what they want to do in this space. So it's a lot of helping people get licenses, helping them find buildings, helping them get through the local governments, hiring the right vendors, understanding what their vendors are saying. There's a lot of confusion and complication in the space that we help with. Generally speaking, I'm a consultant with specialty in retail, real estate, kind of the nuts and bolts of getting one of these shops open. I'm really excited for this panel. Brought together a couple local operators. That was kind of our focus, was to say who are the South Jersey manufacturers doing cool stuff, making what's coming next. So proud to bring together this panel, and thank you all for coming. I'll pass along the microphone, but pretty soon we'll probably make a decision about if we even need the microphone or not. I, of course, have a radio voice, so I love a microphone.
That means I have to... I like the radio voice too, man, so we're gonna keep that going. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Marshall. I work with AE Global. Thanks for Longview Strategic for pulling this together. Jake and Ellie do a fantastic job of pulling together some interesting panels for discussion at these events. So I'm a VP of client relationships. It changes every day what I do. But strategic partnerships, essentially business development for AE Global. My path towards AE Global has been like every entrepreneur, I guess. You touch everything along the way. Foundation in consumer product goods with Pepsi, General Mills, Sara Lee Foods, Aetna Healthcare for 20 plus years, and got pulled into the cannabis space about 9 years ago in the state of Maryland at the launch of the medical program there. So as a VP of sales and marketing, so 19 growers, 19 processors, a bunch of dispensaries, a lot of collaborative growth to get that market up and running in the medical stage. So my evolution to packaging now is I got recruited like 2 years ago. Kind of a perfect fit for my experience and background. Consumer product goods tying into cannabis. The company I work for has been around for about 77 years. Perfume, biopharmaceutical, liquor bottles, all the stuff that cannabis goes into is the same platform for cannabis. With some CR resistance, a couple more coatings, and a lot more, regional issues. So looking forward to talking about that and partnering with people in the state of New Jersey. We have about 20 partners here in the state of Jersey. I'm based in Massachusetts. We're headquartered in Miami, but we do a lot of international sourcing, also domestic production for Mylar, cartons, and other items here in the state.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Chuck Garrity. I am owner, president of Death at the Fox Brewing Company. We are a craft brewery and coffee roastery located in South Jersey, right outside Philadelphia. We're in Gloucester County. I started Death at the Fox in 2017. Before that, I was in healthcare as well. So I was with stints with KPMG for about 13 years, then PwC. Then I just took a complete left turn and started my own brewery and exited the corporate world. And now it's been almost 10 years. I've, as some might say, I battled the state directly. My company sued the state of New Jersey in 2022 over the crazy brewery laws, if you're familiar with what happened on the brewery side. I started working in the cannabis industry with some very good friends, colleagues about a year and a half ago. I see that there's a very strong future in cannabis, specifically around beverages. I'll talk about the drop in the alcohol market and the kind of the shift that's happening demographically as well. I think it's a really interesting time. So it's really awesome to be part of this industry now and to talk today. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Hirsch Patel from Red Oak Cannabis, and We are a new manufacturer launching actually in probably the next 2 weeks, as well as Red Oak Dispensary Absecon. My journey started, perhaps following the medical path, but then my mentor and the main principal of our company, Raj Patel over there, we connected a couple years ago and we started into the hospitality business, real estate, construction, and we got pushed into the New Jersey cannabis industry. Proudly, we can say we built a full ISO 8 CGMP facility 15 minutes down the street. It's a beautiful building, along with a dispensary attached. And we have more coming down on the pipeline, but very excited here to represent Red Oak and bring a lot of innovative AI manufacturing ideas and products to the market very soon.
Great, thank you. I think we can transition to no mic, just to kind of keep us more bouncing back and forth. We may have to use our projection voice a little bit more. But I want us to start off the questions at a bit of a macro lens. Obviously, all of us are bringing a lot of different experience to it, but traditional CPG industries sort of have done this before. They've had newer form factors coming online, whether it's a new product or a new, even just a kind of packaging, right? They're all situations where products are sometimes ahead of the regs. What have your experiences throughout the country sort of shown about different market forces that help shape product mix, right? As new things come online, what really makes them succeed and move from that 1 or 2% market share to the larger?
I can start with that. So my background actually was a really good foundation for cannabis because I've seen the evolution of new products and entry through Pepsi and General Mills. That was part of my job in sales and marketing, right? So we were constantly adding to the bottom line. So for General Mills, for instance, Cheerios, Wheaties, Chex Mix, all our standard formats, and then he would introduce new products all the time. So we used a lot of data analytics to really inform our decisions. There was Nielsen data, a lot of analysis to really look at pricing, formats, pull through, and there's only so much shelf space in, let's say, a grocery store, right? So you had to really make sure that, and do a great job of selling a new product into the market and do some analysis about what's going on. So I know we're going to talk about, beverages, for instance. Was just down at the Hemp Beverage Expo in Atlanta. So about 100 retailers were in that space, and looking through just the number of organizations that were really pushing hard on the beverage market. Super competitive, a lot of differentiation in the space, whether it's seltzers or drinks and how you're infusing and what you're doing. So a lot of it is brand differentiation, the quality that you're putting into the product, and just having a really strategic game plan, which will probably go out the window at some point and you got to adjust. But you have to have some core basics to getting products into the market, selling them to the market, and then more importantly, keeping them on the shelves.
I'll say that in my experience, the market is almost always ahead of the government, right? And that makes sense because you look at, bureaucrats and legislators, they're having to keep up with so much at one time. They're not subject matter experts, or very rarely subject matter experts in anything. So what happens as a result is, business moves at, 10,000 miles an hour, government moves about 100 miles an hour. So you have, in my industry in craft beer, now, I'm seeing it in cannabis because it's kind of a copy-paste situation. The government has taken a lot of what they've done, especially on the beverage front, with craft beer, and they're applying it to the cannabis industry. It's just a different department, it's a different entity, CRC versus the ABC. But the challenge with us was that our type of license and brewery license was passed, and the state really didn't understand the industry at all, and so they're trying to now people are operating businesses, pouring beers. This is happening for years, and the state still hasn't even figured out kind of what they want to do with tasting rooms and whether, what type of experiences and all of this type of thing. And it took 10 years and it's still being figured out. So understand, and with my partners at the Frosted Nug at Carney's Point Red Bank, we're looking at this from the perspective of, from manufacturing, from growth and cultivation and retail. All three of those areas still have a lot of gray area, unknown, where the government is really trying to kind of scan and see what's happening in the industry, and they're depending on lobbyists to actually write the legislation and the statute. So that's the other thing that sometimes people are really surprised when I'm working with state government all the time and I'm visiting senators, I'm going to these meetings. Your laws are not written by your legislators themselves. They're written by the lobbyists for the legislators. And that's why sometimes they have a certain spin on them. So that is something that, to be completely prepared, has happened in the brewing industry, and I think you can expect it in a big way in the cannabis industry. You're already feeling it.
And just kind of the macro point is that we're still at such a we are still starting something that is still got so much change coming down the pipe. How can we potentially discuss with either other operators in the state or with the regulators themselves ways to prepare for rapid change, right? They know they have to figure out, well, what do we do about really getting food here properly? How do we integrate social consumption and eating? How do we make this work? Are there any tips or tricks or thoughts that are at the forefront of your mind? Sort of what should Jersey be looking to do next?
Are you gonna say lawsuits?
Eventually, if they mess it up.
Please don't sue.
So a framework that I had was in Maryland. It's like as that program was launching across the board, is open lines of communication and like really understanding the policy and where you need it to go. They're learning just as much as anybody else in terms of like really implementing the laws, and they're working hard to do that. And they rapidly change, and I think having a game plan, following the rules is a great starting point. But you're going to have to adapt and really figure out how to apply those laws and make those changes. So I think being at the forefront of it is a beautiful thing, but you're also taking a hit for a lot of things. That's across the cannabis industry in general. Is you're breaking barriers for the first time. You're going to get knocked down, but you're creating the foundation really for the next people that are going to be coming behind you.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're in this business because of we're accepting the risk, right? Until it's federally rescheduled. So, New Jersey just needs to look at where things have been successful, just like the West Coast. A lot of new products and trends have originated in the West Coast markets and are slowly being translated here to those operators who are willing to take that risk until regulations and guidelines are enacted, enforced, and fully explained. For example, I would say almost every regulation with the CRC right now is left up to interpretation and to a compliance officer. But, like you said, we have to have open communication and a plan A to Z. If it goes bad, what do we do? Do we pull off the shelves? How do we adapt? And it's kind of like the dietary supplement industry. I mean, if you've seen it in the past 5 years, it went from being very, very regulated to almost left up to interpretation on the products, as long as you label it as a dietary supplement.
Yeah.
So taking those trends, health, wellness, using adaptogens, it's a risk in New Jersey, right? Even on, I'd say, new emerging markets, it's just navigating the waters and accepting the risk. But at the end of the day, if you come out with a strong, unique, trendy product, it's gonna do well.
On that question, just kind of to zoom in a little bit of hyper-focus on product mix in this state, right? We all see the data and the percentages of each, which helps people model, but what exactly can a manufacturer do to adapt to the issues with either supply itself or the labor of creating a market, of actually getting products to outlets? What are some of the market forces that you've seen? Or that you're prepared for, I should say.
Wow. Repeat that last part.
Yeah, so product mix, I think, is two separate points, right?
Sure.
There's the question of what products do we think are going to fit in and how do we leverage market share as much as possible. There's that secondary question of how do I get by with this? How do I make a product that's priced properly? How do I not get completely crushed by scale issues? These are all problems that no market has solved perfectly, but we're at the start of something here that sees a balancing act. It's a little harder in this market than we see in some others.
So it takes having a strong foundation.
from turning a idea into an actual product that consumers can purchase, you have to look at all the numbers, you have to price everything out, and you have to factor in the chance, if it's something new, innovative, trendy, that the state might not be okay with it. So, like adaptogens, lion's mate, ashwagandha, even caffeine is a big no-no nowadays, even though, you see in the hemp market, people are mixing 100 milligrams of THC in a can and caffeine, energy drinks, but when you go and enter the regulated space, it's a big no-no. For example, right now, we can only have a 5 milligram cap to work with as a beverage producer in New Jersey. Meanwhile, you go to every liquor store and they don't have any issues. They're distributing everywhere. They don't have metric, they don't have compliance handoffs, bank checks, all of that. So when you factor in all the fees and the risk, that's, once again, I think that's why there's a slow rollout in the cannabis industry of product mix. But we slowly do see, flower going down, vapes going up, edibles going up, and new edibles coming into the market. Yeah.
So I think the best thing you can do, I agree with all those points, just visit another state who's had cannabis, legal a lot longer. It's like going ahead in time, right? It's like a time machine. You go out to California, you go to Massachusetts, you go to Oregon. They've been dealing with these issues. So you'll see. I visited a few dispensaries in California recently over the summer. I mean, they all had refrigerators with beverages. A lot of their stuff had shifted over to rosin-based versus distillate and that type of thing. They're just even the way that they lay out their stores, the experience, I think, and that's, again, one of the things that my partners and I at Frosted Nug are really excited about is providing that experience, above and beyond just a transaction of a product. Right? So that's really what gets into your marketing vision, which I know we're going to be talking about. One other point on just about the getting in touch and creating awareness with with the state government. All of you who own a business, get to know your local legislators, your mayor, your assembly people, your senators, your state senators, get to know them and tell them directly. You can tell their staff, or you can, and the other thing is money talks. So we as an industry need to be able to get together and form a strong lobby to help craft laws that are friendly to cannabis and our industry. So if we don't have our house together, and unfortunately that requires money, it requires investment, and that goes into some pockets of government officials who, well, it's amazing. They actually were really friendly to us. We wonder why. Just follow the money.
1 second, question on that, right? I think you bring up something that is frightening to a certain extent, that there may be others who are lobbying harder. There's another side of this, in that, what have you seen from the alcohol side about the discourse around legal cannabis?
Yeah, I mean, so again, so this is how alcohol, there's so many parallels, but, craft breweries were a very new thing 10 years ago. And it upset and disrupted a very, rooted, ingrained industry, which is the restaurant and bar ownership, and the licensing system. So it threw a wrench in the entire system. And I think that our industry is seen by that. And our industry is also experiencing that with hemp, That's really because, it's almost like we kind of like say, well, we're doing things the right way and now suddenly, so I think it's kind of working both ways. Cannabis is doing it to alcohol right now, right? My alcohol sales are down 20% over the last 12 months. I own a brewery. It's tough out there right now. But the opportunity. So cannabis is disrupting alcohol, and hemp is disrupting cannabis. So there we go.
I mean, that's the 10,000 pound gorilla, right? Like, it's something that in this side of the industry that all of us have been in and pushing for so long, it is a very difficult conversation when everyday consumers have normalized hemp retail products, people aren't going to hospitals as much as we talk about it, right? Like the reality is that the toothpaste is out of the tube. And as a legal licensed cannabis beverage manufacturer, is that too much uncertainty and fear?
I would say so. You know, it's at the end of the day, the liquor. I mean, we see it every day at the liquor stores, right? The shelf space for even craft brewers, craft manufacturers in the alcohol space being slowly going away, and just a bunch of THC seltzers that I've never seen before in my life. Don't know where it came from. Are the COAs real? What's the facility like? What are the inspections like? It's pretty scary. So that's why when our company made the decision to enter the space, we considered all of these factors and decided to, hey, plan A, CRC regulated, FDA regulations, that's why we're CGMP, ISO 8. Plan B, you know, we'll do what we can in the hemp space as well. Our goal was always to enter the New Jersey market, just being in dispensaries, but you know, to survive, you have to adapt. And going for that hemp processor license, it was in the air at first. It was like, what does our company want to focus on? Does it want to be in that market or this market? But did we really have a choice?
And functionally, did that mean like separating a part of your facility that's hemp only and then having a whole other section that's going to be high THC legal cannabis only?
There's a lot of rules and
There's
regulations
so
on
many
that.
things.
Yeah, so you know, it's left to interpretation at the end of the day. Depending on who is doing your inspections and who is your compliance officer, it's left to them to make the decision if, okay, can I use the same piece of equipment or not? Technically, no, but if I'm doing deep cleans, I have all the SOPs, we're using ethanol between everything, nothing is really touching, then why can't we, right? If you can prove that you're not mixing the two, keeping the things separate, then it should be allowed. But there's so much scrutiny, and at the end of the day, it's just like all the regulations. It's left to interpret.
And again, this is an example of the industry being more, you know, the industry itself, you know, knows the technicalities and has to deal with the day-to-day challenges in a much different way than government, who is trying to regulate those industries, can even comprehend, right? So that's the challenge. The people writing these laws, they may not truly understand the CIP, sanitation, you know, acid rinse process, right? Like that's like, but that's why sometimes these decisions that are made, you know, right now, a lot of these laws are still being formed. A lot of these final regulations, the law is there, the legislation, but not the regulations are still, especially around consumption venues, which are top of mind. I know people always want to be talking about that. That's an exciting opportunity. But, you know, in consumption venues, how are we going to be able to sell our product? I mean, you know, is it going to be just something that you buy at a dispensary and then you can consume it, or non-alcoholic or non, you know, other type of, you know, non-THC products available like coffee, you know, because that's something that that's part of my day-to-day, you know, challenges right now to understand where the state's going to fall on that, where our municipality's going to fall on it. Because it starts with your municipal level and then it goes up to the state level. So if there's a disconnect there, be aware of that.
And where's the data preventing coffee and food and things like that? Why?
Right. And
Tell us why.
It is the same, and again, the same challenge that we as breweries, you know, I was told I couldn't do coffee. I worked with the state very closely, and guess what? We had coffee, and we were the only ones to do it for 10 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy, right? Like when you tell your friends, right, they all go, "What? The cannabis industry is changing so fast, right?" But the reality is, like, cannabis beverages are already everywhere. But is there? Let's just like zoom out a bit. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, hopefully 5 years from now, but the idea that in the future there's going to be a time and a moment where the guardrails are fixed, where we understand what the rules of the road are. How does the breakout happen into the legal market? Is it a celebrity launching a brand with a super successful chain of consumption lounges? Like, how do we get this out of the stigma of the last century into the next kind of business model.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the opportunity side of it, right? So we talk about the risk, right? We all do like kind of SWOT analysis and trying to figure out where this is going. The opportunity's here. Like we wouldn't be at this conference if we didn't see the potential in this industry. The demand's there, right? Flour's going to be 60%. You're going to have concentrates. You're going to have beverages. I don't think it's going to go in some crazy part where like 70% of consumers are going to start drinking beverages, and that's all they're going to do for cannabis. So you're always going to be fighting for shelf space. You're going to have to, and I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is what are you doing with your brand? Like what is the opportunity there, right? Quality, ingredients, being honest with your consumers on what you're putting on labels. And I think that's going to be something that will keep your brand on shelves for the longevity if we're talking 5 to 10 years out. So there's a couple brands here, like Levia, for instance. Really excited for that, for Kristen and Eric. So they worked really hard for their brand in the market, right? Fought through different stages, and now they're entering a second stage for their company to come out and really develop under their own tutelage, right? So this is going to be the second generation for our brand, which I don't think really has happened in the cannabis and beverage space. So kind of like the forefront for seltzers and beverages, right? So we're seeing like all these different companies find ways to compete. Like Breeze is one, for instance, as well, who we work with from a packaging standpoint. So pushing mushrooms, pushing the mailer standpoint, right? So really adapting and figuring out how it's gonna work. And like I've been watching the craft beer side of it, consuming maybe my fair share of those.
Nice.
But it's like watching that develop. It's like you're competing versus Budweiser, but Budweiser, Corona, Modelo still there. It changes a little bit, but you just have to like really keep your focus on creating your brand and having that quality and pull through.
Yeah, as a beverage company, I feel like we have an advantage here, thinking about packaging and, just in general, there's a lot of experience, especially in the craft beer market around that. So that's exciting. I'm going to say that I truly feel that in 3 to 5 years, I think the preferred modality of cannabis will be a beverage. I also think that you're going to see the first cannabis commercial in the Super Bowl this year. It'll be a hemp product. But you're going to see, and I think there's still a lot of people who don't understand or don't even understand what cannabis drinks are. I think that's going to shift radically over the next year. And I think that you're already seeing, Cycling Frog and some of those guys hit national media campaigns. So I think the general awareness of this industry is really going to explode.
I mean, is there any chance that the pendulum swings hard though? Like, what if some of these states that are going for outright bans succeed and get popular and win the midterms, and it becomes like this is the risk we all take. This is the insanity that we all face. This is out of our control.
We just won't live in those states.
That's true. Hide in the cities.
Yeah.
That's a very important skill. Very interesting hinge point on beverages being the major form. Form factor wise though, a lot of other products coming through manufacturing and innovative products are coming in each of these different modalities. What sort of novel form factors, whether it's new infusions into pre-rolls, new science around quick acting edibles, or as we were talking about, the sort of hospitality play of what is a social consumption space. I mean, that changes what manufactured goods work best. What are some of the things that you're thinking of as manufacturers about how to either capture that market best, look for innovation, or partner through it, right? You don't have to be an island. There's so many other people also working on really cool things.
Yeah, so I think just looking at the health and wellness trends, I'd say at least in the past 5 years, and then you put that side to side with the alcohol consumption trends, I'd say the younger generation is more into health and wellness, being active, being fit, taking care of their bodies, and that's what's shifting alcohol consumption. And it goes back to this point on beverage and why in 5 years, I also do agree it's gonna take a lot more market share, is because people still, one of my buddies told me, I don't like drinking, I like the act of drinking. So it's still a social thing. It's been a social thing for centuries,
Thousands.
right? Thousands of years.
Yeah.
So that's why, beverage will continue. It's already out of control. I mean, it's I don't think it'll just swing completely the other way.
Well, they tried that. I mean, Murphy did try that last year in our state. They tried to pull it off the shelves, and that lasted about 2 days.
Tell the regulators.
Yeah. So that I think.
Then for every Jersey, there's a Texas that could go crazy.
Yeah, right. And then the other thing is like looking at New Jersey as a market right now. It's definitely in a growth stage. Like looking at the SKUs that are available in this market, just on how it launched and looking at how it compares to other markets, like where I started in Maryland. So Maryland is at about like 1.6 billion. New Jersey's at like 1.1, and it's still growing, right? So the number of SKUs, I was kind of digging into the SKU count. Packaging, looking at the conference coming down here, which is great for us, right? So the SKU count is increasing, right? So I think last year around this time it was like 2,100 maybe SKUs in the market, and it's grown to like over 4,800 and growing fast. Just looking at the number of vendors here at the conference, you're seeing a lot of outside players outside the state of New Jersey that have models that have worked in other states, that have worked in California or Massachusetts or wherever, and taking those philosophies and applying them to the state of New Jersey. So if you're a brand operator here in the space that is just getting going, lessons learned from other states, lessons learned from other brands, lessons learned from other, like it's no different from when I was at Pepsi looking at energy drinks, and they're like, oh, this is like nobody's gonna do anything with energy drinks. Red Bull comes through and takes like 70% of the market, right? And that's like slowly eroding away from that brand and what they've been able to do. But differentiation and the other brands have been able to come in and really carve out their space.
And I think new innovative products will come out in Jersey that are created to navigate through regulations.
Exactly. Figure out what loopholes, what backflips, whatever we got to do to package a certain way, make the product fit your rules. Creativity is king. That's kind of always been the truth in the manufacturing space. I think I'd like to talk about white label manufacturing and just some of the other creative solutions about, okay, I have a class 2 manufacturing license. I spent $1 million on machines. I spent way more than that on the building. I've been through 2 years of land use. We're in the hole, right? How do you pick your head up, look around, and say, where are some of the opportunities that you might not have been in the plan at the start that are very viable and very long?
I feel like, that sounded just like our experience.
Hey,
but, we started just thinking small, thinking scale, but as we got closer to launch and development, we had to adapt, from anywhere from labor to, when you use automation and when you scale properly, that's when you're going to be able to survive long term. So we invested in a gummy line that does 35,000 gummies an hour. It takes one, maybe two operators, but versus, pour and scrape, have them cure, everything is about space and maximizing efficiency. So every day I would say we want to achieve something new. Just by even today visiting the conference, look at that product, look at that SKU. Maybe we can do this as well. Not maybe, we can. If you want to achieve it, you can. And I would say we never thought about nano before, right? Fast acting is still new to New Jersey, I would say, in terms of at least edibles and gummies. And now we have a full nano lab. We're in talks about an extraction lab coming in. We recently navigated from we can't do beverage to we're looking at beverage lines right now. So it really depends on your space and what your true vision is. But if you want to be a long-term brand, you just have to adapt and be innovative.
Thoughts on that? I think the question about white label contracting, just
Sure.
as a side note, what we have in Jersey is a plethora of retailers because of the design of the space and the population metrics, right? There's a lot of people who came to this industry saying, I want to open up a store, a brick and mortar thing. And then they are in it for a couple of years and they say, I'm sick of selling these assholes products. How do I take a piece of the margin from all sides that I can? White label contracting is a thing that all of our dispensary clients at some point ask us, how do I get my own pre-roll? How do I get my own vape cart? They don't want to get a license. They don't want to even work at a lab that does more than that. They very simply just want to say, I want a value product that I can put my name on, that I can tell my people to sell, so I make an extra 50 cents a sale, right? It's that sort of crunch. How do you prepare for that?
I mean, I've done white labeling for years, but I think you can learn a lot from other industries too. I think sometimes, we white label them in the coffee industry, right? So it's, and I've been providing, multiple companies. Nobody knows that it's even a Death of the Fox product. And, you kind of, you understand that in doing that, it's a two-way street. You're giving up some of your ability to be able to control your process, right? So just be very careful who you partner with and that they are solvent and they're going to be somebody who's going to be around 3, 6, 12 months from now. I've done it, it's something that I think is an opportunity, especially for, if you have overstock or something along those lines where you can, or, we're facing it right now with coffee beans being 3 times the amount of, at market price than they were like a year ago. So I'm having to get really creative with some of this stuff. And so I think that you just need to, it's almost like interviewing a good employee, or that type of thing. When you choose a partner, especially to white label your product, you just have to be really careful about making that decision.
Yeah, one of our biggest attacks to this market is white labeling and even private labeling. And there's a very valid point. People make any statement that they want. You have to test the product, you have to follow through with it, make sure everything is followed the right way. But it's actually pretty amazing to be able to offer these services to independent retailers and even to other manufacturers who might not have the scale and capabilities to bring their vision and product to life. White labeling is, all right, here's a product, put it in the package, sell it. At least I believe in offering a high quality product with good value at the end of the day. And the point of why sell these assholes products, things like that, that's what builds the brand loyalty. When you're an independent retailer and you're in a competitive market like New Jersey, and there's some areas where there's 6 dispensaries in one township and jurisdiction. How do you compete against those? You create your own brand, you build a following, and price point that. Because at the end of the day, when you white label, your margins are much higher because you're entering in a contract with the manufacturer based on volume. So you're enticed to go further on that product, market that product versus someone else's brand. And then beauty of private label is if a manufacturer offers it like we do, we take what your vision and taste is, we do your research and development, and we bring it to life. And that's where the opportunities are endless. And numbers are one thing, but the feeling of bringing someone's vision to life, their taste, their quality, the effect, I think that's priceless.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a side of the business that, as you said, it's not necessarily a pivot, it's an adaptation to the realities of we have our stuff, let's put it to use. And that's just positivity.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, even sometimes you can't sell everything that a lot of these cultivation and processing manufacturers are making, or utilizing your square footage for your facility to make it profitable for you to operate to do the stuff that you want to do. So finding the right people to collaborate and work with, it's not unique to the cannabis space by any means, or the coffee industry, like where I was on the cereal side. Same thing. You're creating private label opportunities for other companies to kind of grow and flourish. And, sometimes they have a vision as well, especially for dispensaries, and you're looking for a differentiation. We were just having the conversation now, like for a dispensary to have something that's unique to themselves to kind of drive that piece, if you could provide that for them and be collaborative, that's something that could help your brand grow as well, and kind of lift that dispensary up and help you from both sides of it. Yeah.
I'd like to make sure that we leave some time and space for questions, because we are the last panel of the day, so I don't want people to be dragging too late. So one final question is kind of the old entrepreneurial, looking back, what would you have done differently? But if there are people in the room who are walking a similar path, right, what are some of the roadblocks or obstacles that have thrown you for the biggest loops that you would change a little bit, that even you'd approach slightly differently?
Finding the right people to work with, and everything, from A to Z. So whether it's your accounting firm or your packaging people, your employees that you bring on board, that makes a difference when times get tough, and decisions need to be made. Find some good people to work with, and then you can kind of work through your problems.
Yeah, I was going to say accountants and attorneys. I mean, especially good attorneys have really helped me get out some jams and also force, to kind of take in some all-in situations where you just have to, what I felt was do what's right for my industry, right? I think that there's no way that we know what the future is going to bring us. But you can look at macro trends, you can look at things that are happening in other states, kind of put that into your own little mental formula to think about, well, what's going to happen here in Jersey. So, I do feel like there's clues out there, to be able to navigate through some of those challenges. But, you never know. I mean, the election for governor this November is going to have a big impact on everybody here. It's one way or the other. There's going to be a decision coming down about cannabis that is going to be impacted by who sits in that office.
Just to pause on that for a moment, because I think it's really important. What does the alcohol industry think about the governor race? Because in the cannabis space, we hear all sorts of things, but regardless, it's positive. Everyone's like, it's going to be good no matter what happens. But what are we hearing from the other side? Is there...
Yeah, I have great relations in both parties. We just had Mikey Sherrill at the brewery last week. We have Jack, an invite out to Jack and his team, and he expects to visit us over the next couple weeks. I don't think that we're choosing a horse necessarily. I think that what we're trying to do is find areas of common ground to be able to move forward as an industry. And we all agree that over-regulation is bad, and it's really bad in this state. And the interesting thing that I heard from, the Democratic candidate for governor is that she agrees.
Yeah,
and that was like, wow, okay. And called some departments a mess. So,
undoubtedly so.
Yeah, and some run very well, and so our state does some very great things. But I think that and then it comes to really who they are connected to, and who has contributed into their campaigns.
That's really where the rub is. I think a lot of us in this industry are looking at the hemp industry as the scary part here, and trying to understand, is there a political will to protect us? And it's an existential question. And I think the CRC is in a better position than a lot of others.
There's a big question about the lame duck period.
Yeah.
So, post-election going into January, whether they're just they have this hemp law out there, bringing it under the CRC. It'll be really interesting. They've delayed it. It's actually, this week was a year that they passed it, and they haven't done one thing with it. So, or they punt it to the next administration. They're both equal as likely. Yeah.
I'd like to open it up to the room for some questions. I feel like I don't know everyone in the room's positioning here, so this is a great opportunity to learn more about what you guys are into, what you guys are looking for. If there's anyone in the state we can help you with, all of us are authentic connectors, so it's what we'd love to do. Any questions?
I'll ask a question. What do you guys think about delivery in the state of New Jersey?
Delivery, I think the way they licensed it is functional. The way local governments can prevent a Class 6 doesn't make any sense. So you see a lot of local governments saying, we don't want a delivery business here, when they thought they were saying, we don't want deliveries here. And so you see a lot of situations like that where I have to explain to a town and say, this isn't its own thing, really. This is an office, and you're just taking tax money, and they don't get that. But New Jersey is a difficult state to deliver in for a couple reasons. Traffic is a big one. Expense of the roadways is actually a pretty big one. It ends up just being a really expensive transaction. And I haven't spoken to a lot of retailers who have figured it out best, but ones who set order minimums are kind of pretty much necessary nowadays. But I see it when I pull the data from my retailers, like it's not that big a market. It's still a pretty small percentage, and I can't tell if that's cultural or it's functional. I think it's just people who see the fees and say, I'll drive there to save $20 or whatever. But I think in time, if last mile can get integrated better, there's a way to make it cheaper and comparable. But it's a difficult answer because it's functionally it's the correct model. Right? It's how the industry worked itself out after 100 years. Right? It was dealers coming to your house. It's the best way to get weed. Hands down, best way to get weed, no doubt about it. And the industry will return to that, right? It's like all things will come back to their home.
How does the panel feel about that?
Well, I mean, along the other factors, I'd say insurance is a big one. New Jersey insurance, I'm sure New Jersey residents here have been affected by car insurance rates, right? So imagine throwing the word cannabis and delivery on there. It just accelerates just like everything else. But I think right now, just having a retail store and, the process isn't difficult. Guidelines are guidelines. I think they're pretty fair. I believe we have like a 25-mile radius, if I'm not mistaken. But the fact of the matter is the culture. How many, by raise of hands, how many of you who consume alcohol get it delivered? No one, right?
I have.
Yeah, in like an emergency situation or something like that. But in general, I just think culturally it's just not there. Long term, perhaps, but the offering is there. I mean, you don't see a lot of dispensaries offering that service because of the cost associated. But for your question, are you looking like, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are 75% of Amazon customers are women, and 26 or so percent of women consume cannabis. So I think it's, I'm listening to this gentleman talking about this trend of going to beverage. I think dispensaries going forward will shrink significantly because some companies will come in and build a delivery brand. So that's why I asked the question.
Oh, that's a very valid point. Brick and mortar stores that only sell one thing, they don't last forever. There's usually a normalization of the market, and equilibrium may take a very long time.
Counterpoint to that, every liquor store in New Jersey is in the same location it was 50 years ago.
Interesting. Liquor is the trickiest of comparisons because in theory...
That is a one-product store that has
and in theory,
for decades and decades and decades.
I'm from Philadelphia. Our state stores are really great and really functional, and the only market in the country where it makes any sense, and they've tried 6 different ways. But a cannabis dispensary could easily just be another aisle in the liquor store, and we could grab products and put them in a cart and walk them to the front.
That's how Pennsylvania's shaped up, right?
They've been talking about it for years. It's never going to happen because of the lobbying. But functionally, zoom out far enough, vice stores, right? Like the idea is that the government says some things need to be sold separate from kids, some things need to be sold separate from other things. We need to protect these things. It doesn't make a ton of sense to have your cigarette store, your alcohol store, your cannabis store, your whatever gets legalized next store, right? At some point, we become pharmacies. Yeah, like there's an unknown. But that's a great question because it is very difficult to predict.
I think it also depends on modality, right? So like, you're already seeing in beverages and gummies a ton of mail order stuff, right? So that stuff doesn't necessarily even need to, I mean, again, we're talking about intoxicating hemp, but it's still like, that process, we also have these challenges with interstate commerce, which we really didn't get into, but that's a concern as well because the need for delivery and all that stuff kind of goes away when you have a model where, you can mail order something and like Amazon, get it in 4 hours,
So
to your point, where do you see the market going? Like once the interstate commerce is a thing, with like how both you guys are positioned, like where do you see that affecting your business?
Well, it's being, like, day by day, it's being shut down, interstate commerce, at least on the hemp side.
I mean, like if we get to a day where like like regulated cannabis allows for interstate commerce through rescheduling, et cetera, like how do you see that affecting?
That would probably destroy a lot of people on this side of the country, because the costs to operate in New Jersey versus the costs to operate in Oregon, Washington, are, there's not even a comparison in terms of utilities, real estate, labor, you name it, insurance, everything. So I don't see a day that happens, but if it did, it would be detrimental.
Just be aware, so I agree with that, but just be aware that one of the technicalities around the hemp law 2024 was the challenge around the fact that they are requiring it to be made in New Jersey, all right, and the governor admitted and said that goes against interstate commerce, existing statute, that you can't sell a product to another state just based on or you can discriminate on a product based on only if it's your home state. That is how the cannabis manufacturing and cultivation industry work right now in New Jersey. Everything has to be made in Jersey. So if that's a threat, and if that's a threat on the hemp side of that law, just think that, again, things can change. What is it truly legal for the state of New Jersey to require that everything be grown within this state and not outside of the state for a resident of the state to consume it?
I hope so.
Again, it's a question though.
It's an agricultural state. It's got to be.
But there are some products that
Most of it's grown indoors though.
Yeah, like some products work that way, others don't, right? Like I always zoom out to spirits. I think this conversation is very important to think about. Okay, how did the East India Trading Company handle this? How did historically capitalism work itself out growing inside under lights in the Northeast? It doesn't make any sense, right? Manufacturing goods, I think, can still make some sense. You could get a ship coming into a port that gives you a couple shipping containers worth of biomass, and you can be a manufacturing specialist in this region. It's that cultivation question of saying, well, how is my price per gram going to get low enough if I'm doing X, Y, and Z? Now, obviously, I think we're 10, 20 years away from regulators having the gall to take a step back from the legal cannabis program, right? Like there is a protectionist angle for a while, but capitalism has other ways of working out. So interstate commerce for hemp makes it so you can't grow hemp in this state and expect to be profitable if there's competing things on the shelves that are going to be a quarter of the price. It's not close. So, I mean, we said the same thing though about legal cannabis, right? People said no one's going to buy this because it's twice the price. No one's going to buy this because it's 4 times the price. People are still buying from their dealers, but a couple $1 billion a year are coming through the legal market. So maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's just adaptation forever, but I think it's going to be an interesting question no matter what. So, any other questions? I think this was a really awesome panel. I feel like this was more of a class than most. Thank you guys for going deep. This is awesome. We will not be back for panels tomorrow. We mercifully only did the Friday this year in terms of panels, but it's been really great for any of you who have been up to this room throughout the day. Awesome to host a couple events and panels up here. If we don't get a chance to say hi this year, it's been an awesome NECANN. Thank you guys all for coming down. So I'll be here next year. Thank you guys very much.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.